Welcome to episode 17. It's your host, Chris Moss, and today I got 4 encounters for you, 2 Dogman and 2 Skinwalker encounters. But real quick, chrismoss1 at outlook.com. That's where you can send me your encounters, or if you would like to come onto the show and share your encounter yourself, you can do that as well. Just reach out to my email at chrismoss1 at outlook.com. Come join the Facebook group. I'm also on Instagram, so follow me there. And the link to everything is down in the description of the video. And the last thing is that in a couple months, I'm going to be releasing merch. I've been working on some designs, and I have 3 designs so far, so be on the lookout for that. And with that said, welcome to True Untold Nightmares. Let's start these encounters. This encounter comes from a trucker who wishes to remain anonymous because of his profession, but also wants to leave the exact location of this encounter out of it. This trucker said that they started their trip about 5 a.m. because they had a couple of hours to get to their destination, and that they usually take the main roads, but that early in the morning they decided to take the back roads that drive through an Indian reservation because the back roads would save them almost about an hour. Now, this trucker said that they've never heard of anything called a skinwalker before this incident, and they didn't believe in things like Bigfoot and other weird creatures like that. But after the encounter that they had that morning, they're not sure what they believe anymore. So it's about 5 in the morning, and they're driving about 70, 75 miles per hour on that reservation road when they came across a herd of horses. Now, the truckers slowed down thinking that, any horses could cross the road, and that's an accident you don't want to have. And there were no other cars or trucks on this road at that time of night. But shadowy movement caught the corner of the trucker's eye because whatever was moving was beside the truck. Now the trucker turns to look at it, and it was just outside of the trucker's view, and they look into the mirror, and that's when they see a face. It looked like an old woman. Face was painted white. It looked horrible. It was ghastly and just very evil and ugly looking. The trucker said that they screamed and slammed their foot on the gas pedal. Looking back was not an option, and they kept driving as fast as they could. They just wanted to cry and pull over and try to compose themselves, but they wouldn't dare stop on that road. Finally, they made it to the main road and felt more relaxed. There were more cars, a lot more cars on the road, and their heart was racing. It felt like they was having a heart attack, and they would never take that road again. No more back roads, no more Indian reservation roads. And the trucker has no idea what they saw that morning, but after listening to a couple podcasts and looking some things up on the internet, the conclusion they came to, it must have been a skinwalker. The person who sent me this encounter would like to remain anonymous, so instead I'll give him a fake name and we'll just call him John. Before this incident, John had never heard of anything called the Dogman, but now, honestly, he wishes he could go back to not knowing. October 2020, him and 2 of his friends decided to take advantage of the lockdown. They decided to go explore, to go hiking, and pretend to be ghost hunters in an abandoned graveyard. Now, what their ghost hunting consisted of was running around this graveyard and pretending their phones were EMF readers and playing around the headstones, which he realizes was stupid and a huge mistake. They were dumb 18-year-olds. His words. Now, this graveyard was on the East Coast, and it was next to a heavily wooded area. And while they were messing around, he said that they heard a growl. Except this growl was the loudest and meanest growl they've ever heard. It was so loud and deep that it vibrated their insides. And it was a long growl, like whatever was growling had lungs, and it had to be huge. After the growl, one of his friends started to speak, saying, "What?" But before he could finish his sentence, a werewolf stepped out from the tree line about 150 feet away from them. This werewolf was at least 9 to 10 feet tall. Black, pointed ears, thick mane around the neck, less hair or fur, or he didn't know what to call it, around the chest. It was toned and muscular. This thing would make The Rock look weak. He said that they all froze with their mouths open, afraid to speak or move. And it wasn't till this thing took a step forward that they snapped out of their trance and rushed over to the car. And he said it wasn't running off to the car wasn't the smartest thing to do. But he said, honestly, what choice did we have? Either stand there and potentially be a meal, or book it to the car and whoever makes it, makes it. Now, after he shared his encounter, I asked him, do you think this dog man was like a guardian to the graveyard? Or do you think it was just passing by, or maybe, wrong place, wrong time, or maybe this thing lived nearby? And he said, honestly, it could be any one of those options. He wasn't too sure. He just, still to this day, he said he can't get over what him and his friends saw that day. I also asked him, did he think that this thing was trying to either intimidate them out of the area, or was it actually, or did he think it actually was going to attack them? And he said that he honestly believes deep down that this thing possibly would have attacked. He thinks it was more than just intimidation. Now, him and his friends have never talked to anybody about that night, and he said that they haven't really talked to each other about that night since that night. And it's not like they didn't make a conscious decision to not talk about that night. It's just something that they don't do. Like, I'm the first person he said that he's talked to outside of his friend group. Outside of his friends, I'm the first outside person that knows about what happened that night. But yeah, they I think it's more of them just wanting to move on, and they don't really want to think about it. But he said that he would never step foot in that graveyard or any other abandoned graveyard again. And if he visits a cemetery, he's going during the day. This encounter occurred just last year in Texas. One evening, a couple was driving to a party. Now, it's a point in the evening where it's not too bright but not too dark. As they were getting close to the house to where the party's being held, they were about 10 minutes away. Something darted in front of the car that made them swerve. Now, when the husband pulled over, what him and his wife saw standing in the middle of the road still scares them to this day. In the middle of the road was a huge 9-foot wolf on 2 legs. The head and chest was bigger than anything they had ever seen. It smelled of blood and trash. It was like a brownish color and muscular. And after what felt like hours was over in seconds or maybe minutes, it's hard to tell. The wolf ran back into the woods on the other side of the road. Now the couple took a huge sigh, and the husband continued on towards the party. He was starting to pull the car out, thankful that the encounter was finally over. Or so they thought. The car didn't get 2 feet before they heard a knock at the wife's window. To this day, the wife says looking over at the window was the biggest mistake they've ever made. Right there with its hand pressed against the window was the wolf again. But this time it was smiling. After this, the husband sped off and they made it to the party in one piece. After getting to the party, the wife who sent me the encounter said that it took them a few minutes to go in because they had to shake it off. They were a little nervous to even get out of the car. But once they were in the party and they started drinking a little bit, they were able to have fun, but they did not mention anything they saw to their friends. But she feels like some of her other friends or some of their other friends may have also seen this thing on the way up or before any other time, because it was weird. Everybody left at the same time that night. Nobody wanted to leave alone. It was almost like everybody was waiting till everybody else finished, so they all left as a group. Like literally, like everybody left all at once. So it was like going back towards their homes. I guess the cars were like in a single file line. So my professional opinion is that I feel like some, if not all of her friends did see something, but I'm wondering The friends who own that house, do they know they have a damn werewolf in the woods nearby their house? I don't know. You know what? I didn't even ask that. And honestly, from the sound of it, that she probably didn't ask them that either. But also, how do you like bring that to your friends? Like, hey, you have a werewolf in your woods next to your house. You know, I don't know if I would say anything. I mean, I guess it depends on what friend. But let me know down in the comments below how you guys would handle that situation. This next encounter comes from William, who believes that him and his friend saw a skinwalker one night in South Texas while they were hanging out. One summer night, William and his friend decided to leave the house after, watching movies and playing video games all day. They decided to, walk around a little bit at night and with flashlights and see what they can find, thinking that they would find all types of critters and stuff. But what they end up finding out there that night, Williams says still haunts him to this day. Williams said that him and his friend were walking around with flashlights, joking around, just hanging out on a warm summer night until his friend's light illuminated this thing. He said it looked like a person, but it wasn't. It was on all fours and naked, really big for whatever this thing was, the biggest thing they've ever seen. And its limbs seemed to fold under itself, like twisted and contorted in an unnatural way. And its skin was so pale and it clung onto it like it had been stretched onto it. But the part that creeps him out and scares him to this day and gives him goosebumps is its face. Its jaw was hung open to this gaping black maw, like a snake unhinging its jaw, getting ready to eat. And its eyes were black and they glistened in the night as it looked at them. But as quickly as they saw this thing, it quickly scurried backwards, almost like it was rewinding like a VHS tape. It quickly scurried backwards into the brush, away from the beam of the flashlight. Williams said that him and his friend were pale and couldn't believe what they had just saw. They didn't even know what they had just saw. They were shaken up and they couldn't sleep for a long time. He said that him and his friend were consistently having nightmares. Suffice to say that the boys ran back home, but they never told their parents because what do you tell your parents? And it's not like their parents would believe them anyway. Now it's years later, William's an adult. He hasn't seen or talked to his friend from his younger days in many years. He no longer lives in South Texas. And he said he's never seen anything like what he saw that night ever again. He only saw it that one time and he doesn't know what to make of it. But after some research, he thinks what he saw was a skinwalker. But then again, he has his doubts. Down in the comments, let me know what you guys think it was. Me personally, I want to say skinwalker, but at the same time, I feel like it's not. But let me know your opinion down in the comments. Thank you for the support. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for listening to this episode. Don't forget, chrismoss1@outlook.com. Send me your encounters, or if you'd like to come on the show to share your encounter, you can do that as well. Join the Facebook group. Follow me on Instagram, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.